Bound by Industrial Drive, Bull and Turl streets, the land is better known to the locals as the old BHP horse paddock. But judging by early sales, Mayfield will soon boast a new housing estate, the first since 1914.
The lots themselves start from $39,950 with an average price of $48,000 and are about 560 square metres in area.
Lord Mayor John McNaughton officially opened the sale of the three-stage McDonald Jones development. In less than 2 hours, 5 blocks had been snatched up.
The majority of the market will be the investor market and the first homeowner. We've done stats on the area prior to going to purchase it and develop it, and we've tried to fit the land to the keeping of what's in surrounding areas.
And it seems new owners are also securing a small piece of history. The land was part of a 2,000-acre grant given to Lieutenant John Platt in 1823. It's had many owners since then, including BHP, and at one time convict labour was used at a nearby coal seam.
Used to barrow it down to Platt's Channel and put it and bowl it up to Newcastle and take it out on barges. So there's a lot of history that surrounds the place that people wouldn't be aware of.
And now that it's going to rain, I think we'll call that quits.
Thank you.
In pouring rain around 4 this afternoon, 2 sedans collided head-on a straight stretch on the road between Inverell and Moree. Emergency workers were soon on the scene to find the drivers of both cars dead. A passenger was also killed. While the wet weather made driving awkward, locals say this section of the road is in relatively good condition. Traffic was slowed down to a trickle as ambulance officers worked to free another passenger whose condition tonight is described as satisfactory. Police investigations are continuing. The reason for the crash is yet to be uncovered. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The Scorps have recorded 9 wins for the season so far, only 3 behind competition leaders West. The amazing turnaround in the club's performance has been locally bred. Nearly all the forwards have come up through the ranks, and captain coach Mal Graham has combined them well with his backline.
When we looked at the situation in the pre-season, we weren't overly confident about these young fellows, but one of the things about them is they're super confident within themselves. They've got in and they've done the work, and they're coming up trumps at the moment.
Another key to their success has been the breakaway from regimented training methods. The day after every game they head to the gym for aerobics to loosen up.
Just to have something a little bit different perks them up, and they seem to get over their bumps and bruises that much quicker.
And Toronto will want to be feeling good this weekend against Waratah because it is a mini grand final for them. They need at least 1 win to ensure their spot in the semis. If they lose, they then have to pull off a big ask, defeating Curry at home or West.
We had to talk about it at training last night, and the guys are pretty confident. They want to go for 3 out of 3.
And with the determination they have shown already this year, it isn't an unbelievable idea. It took 12 strikes to rack up a perfect game score. The 300 was enough to win Terry Marr the Brisbane Cup and set him on a roll that saw him clinch a major Sydney tournament last Sunday, and again he came close to repeating that freaky score, recording a game of 258.
I'm just on a real high at the moment. Everything is absolutely falling into place, and I just hope I can keep it going. Who knows when a run like this will end.
Terry says he never considered 10-pin as a sport until he played a game with his mates 17 years ago. From then on, he was hooked.
Hopefully, I'll be bowling forever.
Terry's life now revolves around the sport. When he's not playing, he runs a 10-pin mail order business. He says 10-pin isn't just brawn and youth. A fair amount of thinking is involved.
You have to liken it to trying to open a safe, I think, on a particular day at a particular tournament.
Terry's next big tournament will be the $15,000 Skins Challenge in Taree.
What you're looking at is the future. In a setting suggestive of Star Wars, the latest in computer technology is being shown off at an expo in Newcastle University's Great Hall. Some of the exhibits show how businesses construct a competitive edge. Others take the user into animated worlds. Classic movies can even be viewed on state-of-the-art screens. Not that the pen has been totally replaced by the keyboard, now they've been combined in a unique computer notepad.
They'd actually fill the forms in with a pen as if it's like a notepad, but you're actually capturing the information onto disk so that you can print it off automatically and update your database.
But the kids of tomorrow won't have to read books, the computers will do it for them.
Hey, Albert. Hi, Pablo. Where's Wendy?
Here I am.
The organiser of the inaugural Newcastle Computer Show, Terry O'Brien, says the event not only allows the 25 exhibitors to display their wares, it also illustrates how quickly technology is changing.
The technology is doubling within a few months these days. It's a very, very quick industry.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The imaginations in this classroom have run wild, each student an author, illustrator and publisher.
The story is an adventure story about Toby, a 12-year-old girl, and she goes to look for her real father into the city of Brisbane.
In its second year, the program involves 4 local schools, students exploring many themes from love stories to adventures.
It's about this boy who goes to Africa with his father, and he has lots of adventures with this tribe that he meets up with on the first day.
At an early age, these students have already grasped the requirements of a bestseller.
We have characters that are interesting, they grab your attention right from the beginning, and the children are showing developing skills of being able to have a plot that develops and a beginning, a middle and an ending.
Jennifer Ingall, NBN News.
The courthouse and school buildings, used as a community centre for 13 years, go under the hammer next Friday. But the organisations using the buildings say they now pay nominal rent and will fold if forced to find new premises.
Our organisation will be affected strictly from the sense of cost. We'd either have to relocate the services at a huge expense and a detriment to those services, or close the services down completely.
To me, it seems incredible that there's 4 organisations here funded by Direct Fay and working very successfully, that we can now have really big problems with programming and things like that, and funding and everything else like that, because the Attorney General wants to sell the courthouse.
The services affected are the award-winning Handiworks Recycling Centre, the Adult Migrant English Service, Wyong Leisure Learning and Wyong Regional Workplace Initiatives. Today's public meeting heard that their work is invaluable in a town facing high unemployment with few community-based facilities. But not everyone at today's meeting opposed the sale.
But if there are developers that want to purchase the remaining site right through to that back fence that can develop it within those guidelines set by the council and this community, those developers should be given that opportunity to bid.
But with few objections, today's meeting called on the government to negotiate the sale of the site to Wyong Council, and that's something Council has been trying to do for 6 years.
We've held a number of discussions at high level with the Attorney Generals. Our advice is that the Attorney General has approved of the sale by auction only, which means that any attempt that we might have to negotiate a purchase price before the sale is not authorised.
The historic fort stands majestically on Newcastle's headland. During World War II, shots were fired from here at Japanese submarines. These days it houses a military and maritime museum, but it seems the federal government wants to offload it. Lord Mayor John McNaughton says Newcastle Council was offered the fort some time ago, but it isn't interested in the building in its present condition.
But in its present state, with a lot of money to be spent on it, we just can't afford it.
A spokesperson for the Minister for Planning, Robert Webster, confirmed that the federal government has expressed an interest in selling the fort to the state government. The offer is under consideration. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Mike Armstrong is going to Manly Golf Club as its secretary-manager. He starts there on August 9. Mr Armstrong, who told the Knights of his intentions last night, denies he's walking out when the going gets tough for the club.
It's not the case, as I explained to you, Catherine. The moves to commence where I'm going started in June. In June we were still confident of making the final 5 series.
Money-wise for the Knights, things haven't been rosy from day one. The initial cost of setting up Marathon Stadium for Winfield Cup commitments left them $2 million in debt. Since then, things haven't significantly improved. In 1989, they lost around $800,000. Last season saw a brief reprieve for the club. With all 3 grades in the semi-finals, they made for the first time ever a $120,000 profit. This season, things are looking glum. The Knights' problem is that their budget relies on gate takings and sponsorship. Also, they're the only team in the Winfield Cup to be without an associated licensed club to give them financial support. Tomorrow, Armstrong, Hill and Kevin Smith will meet with the New South Wales Rugby League, where the Knights' debt and a plan of how to reduce it will be discussed.
Congratulations.
Taken for granted by most, trees are a priority for these students at Lambton High. Late last year, they were the first to participate in a program organised by Trees in Newcastle to get trees in schools. Since then, the scheme has branched out to 20 other primary and high schools. A total of 800 trees now help make some school environments a little greener.
Because the kids are involved with the planting, they take a very strong sense of ownership with the trees. So they're actively looking after them, watering them, mulching them, checking that they're in good order.
St George Bank provided the seed funding needed for the scheme, and Newcastle's area manager today joined in the hard work. Green issues have become a major concern to many students. The attitudes of this environmental group represents a growing trend.
If it's in high school or primary school even, we get the deep feeling for the environment before we have to go out and face the world, which I think is good. It helps the environment in general, just having early education.
It means that in the Newcastle of the future will be a much more beautiful city. It's already changed heaps, and it's certainly going to keep going that way, I can tell.
This has been a familiar sight off the coast of New South Wales in recent weeks. Southern right whales frolicking in our waters, even daring to enter harbours and ports. But visits by the mammals are not always so incident-free. Hundreds of whales have perished in the last 20 years after stranding themselves on our beaches. Why this happens remains a mystery. In last year's stranding at Seal Rocks, 37 of the 49 whales returned to the sea, thanks to the efforts of hundreds of helpers, parks and wildlife officers and members of the sea mammal rescue group Orca. Operating on a volunteer basis, Orca maintains a 24-hour hotline for sightings or strandings, as well as gathering information about whales, dolphins or seals. Minister for the Environment Chris Harcher has announced a $5,000 grant for the group, which they'll use to buy rescue equipment and keep the hotline running. The Orca hotline is 02 415 3333.
"22-year-old Andrew Landman is the friendly face of the Holiday Inn at Terrigal. While he spends most of his days looking after other people's luggage, he now never forgets to look after himself. Competing in a triathlon in Japan 2 years ago, he became so badly dehydrated he collapsed and nearly died. He was so dry his blood started to clot. No doubts about his fitness now though. He spends between 4 and 8 hours a day training, a lot of it uphill.
Everyone sees me going up the hills around here, running and riding. With the hills they build strength in your legs and hopefully it'll give me that extra strength.
He also sneaks a bit of training in while he's at work.
I've been known to run to the cars to get in a bit of extra training, or run up the fire stairs instead of the lifts to incorporate some training.
Andrew will need all the practice he can get during his 8 days at the Games in Malaysia. He will compete in 8 separate events. The last will be the gruelling triathlon.
That's the one thing that's going to be against me, the heat, because as you said, I'm training early in the mornings here and late in the afternoons, and it is a bit chilly now, and over there I'll be instant heat.
To try and avert another health scare, he starts doing some of his training in the sauna next month. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
Pacific Power is Australia's largest energy generator, and the Hunter is the engine room for much of this state's electricity supply. It's from a campaign of improvements in work practices and reliability of supply being achieved here that Pacific Power can claim to outgun the performances of giant North American power suppliers. The company is exporting its technology and expertise into Asia and is working toward the establishment of a national power grid here, selling cheaper electricity to other states. An expo of local achievements, from breakthroughs in coal mining techniques to the sale of waste products, was held in Newcastle today. Pacific Power earned $460 million for the state's coffers last year, while supplying the cheapest power in the country. The downside of the coin is that Australia remains one of the world's biggest greenhouse gas contributors. Pacific Power is also attempting to market energy efficiency rather than bulk consumption. Maitland Highway Patrol Police attributes 6 fatalities this year to drink driving. On average, that's nearly 1 a month, and if that's not sobering enough, the weekend saw 41 people charged with mid and high-range driving offences.
The fact that 41 people were charged with drink driving is extremely disturbing to us.
Among those charged, a 7-month pregnant woman at Singleton with a mid-range reading, and a Raymond Terrace man who was jailed after testing positive twice on the same night for driving with a high blood alcohol level. A 17-year-old from Head and Greeter, on his first night out in a new car, was caught with a high-range reading. Operation Stay Sober was carried out from Sydney to the Queensland border. In all, 34 drivers had their licences cancelled on the spot.
Despite all the publicity that's been given to drink driving in the past 12 months or so, and the police efforts to curb the practice, it's obvious that some people out there are not heeding the warnings.
And red light cameras came into operation at several accident black spot intersections around Newcastle today. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
Radio.
Yeah, see you, Rolf.
For Faye Cook, the exploits of family dog Rom have certainly bitten the hip pocket. The 8-year-old Chow Chow has put the family on the wrong side of the law 8 times in the space of 6 months for escaping into neighbouring Blackbutt Reserve. Misdemeanours aside, Rom is one smart dog.
He uses the underpass. We live across the road from the underpass with the highway between us, and he uses the underpass to get over there, not across the highway.
Having cost hundreds of dollars for his indiscretions, do the Cooks have a remedy?
No, well, work here is nearly finished anyway, so that when the builders leave, he hasn't been out for a while.
They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but today Rom was drinking to staying on the right side of the law.
The quarterly establishment report presented last night shows that 944 people are on the employment books, although last November's budget actually allowed for 994 workers. Councillor Tate says the apparent 50 people or 5% shortfall is unacceptable given the rate of general unemployment in the community.
The budget was established last November for 994 people, and we've only employed around 950. Now, clearly unemployment is a very big problem in the community, and council could have been having another 50 people employed. The money's been allocated, that it's been budgeted for, so the only reason that it hasn't occurred is that the council just hasn't kept the numbers up, and that's disappointing.
However, the Lord Mayor presented an entirely different view, saying natural attrition and pending staff appointments more than account for the apparent shortfall.
Counterbalancing that is there's the 100 or 200 people we employ on a short-term basis who are employed. So at the present time today we would have 1,200 people, probably more than that, employed by the council. But of our permanent staff, there are 50 positions being filled at any time, and that happens to be where it is now.
Today's meeting in Newcastle saw members of the Police Association and their family and friends try to make headway on the issue. An alternative transfer scheme devised by the Newcastle officers was discussed during the hour-and-a-half meeting. Police Service Director of Human Resources David Gill says the proposal appears workable.
Whilst we can't give any guarantees, the local people have tried to come up with an alternative. It still acknowledges that there may be a need for forced transfers, but if we can find a better way of achieving the same objective, then I'll be quite happy to look at the document.
Details of the plan haven't been released. However, it's understood to maintain experience amongst Newcastle officers and prevent possible mass resignations of long-serving personnel. Police Association representative Mark Burgess believes common ground has been found on the issue.
Not a great deal of difference. In fact, funnily enough, we had a lot of common ground and he agreed wholeheartedly with a number of the issues we raised. I think the crunch will come when we actually start to talk numbers.
Further talks on the new proposal will be held in a fortnight.
If League headquarters has its way, the Western Suburbs Leagues Club Rosella may soon be flying with the Knights. For nearly 2 years, a merger of some sort has been touted. But now with the involvement of John Quayle and Ken Arthurson, a combination of the clubs is a real chance.
We in the past haven't been able to find the right road to get that alignment of interests, and gentlemen of the calibre of Quayle and Arthurson, possibly they can assist us by acting as honest brokers to find that common ground.
The Knights don't hide from the fact they are in a tight financial corner. The club owes around $2 million. It's not uncommon for a club to be in debt in the New South Wales Rugby League, but what makes it tough for the Knights is getting out of that debt. Newcastle is the only team in the competition without the support of a licensed club. Newcastle's Western Suburbs Leagues Club turns over $20 million each year, one of the most successful businesses of its type in the state. The Knights are keen for an alignment of some kind. Wests are happy to check any possible arrangements.
Let's consider this as a board decision, but I personally would like to see anything I can do to assist the Knights that I personally will do.
League bosses Arthurson and Quayle will meet in Newcastle next week. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
With a look not dissimilar to supermodel Claudia Schiffer, Lisa McIntyre is going to give the Miss Universe pageant a shake.
She's so scared, so very frightened. Anything could happen right here tonight. Beautiful girl.
At 19, Lisa has made it into the Australian final of the pageant, which will be judged on the Gold Coast during a week in September.
You do different things each day. You do fashion praise, you take a disabled child around Dreamworld one day. I'll find that part easy because I have a nephew who's disabled as well. And you go to cocktail parties, dinner parties, balls and everything. Sounds really exciting. I can't wait.
And today, during a promotional appearance, Lisa shared just what she's been doing while she's been waiting.
Saving money to buy clothes and makeup and everything, and trying to diet and exercise as well.
So what's a girl do to get that universally winning look?
I've just been trying to eat a lot of fruit and vegetables. It's been very hard because I have a very sweet tooth, but I'm trying hard. I think I'll get there by September.
National Party leader Tim Fischer arrived in Newcastle by train. The rest of the shadow cabinet travelled by coach to City Hall from Williamtown Airport. The visit was carefully staged to direct most of the limelight on leader John Hewson. Taking the shadow cabinet out of Canberra is seen as an attempt to improve the coalition image and present united support for their embattled leader. Newcastle is a very safe Labor stronghold, but it's been hard hit by high youth unemployment, a problem Dr. Hewson says the coalition could fix. Dr. Hewson was also highly critical of the Prime Minister's handling of the Mabo issue and the effect it could have on investment. One thing Dr. Hewson didn't want to talk about today was Senator Bronwyn Bishop, who's said to be his main leadership rival.
She too was in Newcastle. Her visit, though, was dismissed by Dr. Hewson as a pure coincidence.
Newcastle didn't turn on her best weather for this afternoon's arrival of the New Zealand warships Waikato and Wellington. However, the rainy day did provide the most colourful naval entrance to the city, with the day-glow rain jackets of the crews brightening the decks. The two frigates turned a few heads on their run up the harbour, with plenty of vantage points in use for the occasion. For the Waikato, it's the second visit to the city in as many years.
We were here in similar circumstances last year, and there certainly was a popular demand to come back.
460 sailors are crewing the frigates, which have just been involved in exercises with the Royal Australian Navy off the east coast. Amongst their first duties this afternoon was replenishment of supplies for both vessels, with their tours of duty still having time to run. Also on the agenda, a scrub for both craft to clear the way for sailors to have a free weekend. Waikato and Wellington are berthed at number 5 Lee Wharf and depart the port on Monday morning. They won't be open for public inspection.
Workers met outside the gates of the floating dock early this morning, angry that a deal between the union and management had not been met. An agreement forged with Forjax in 1991 guaranteed nominated union casual workers would be put on ahead of outside labour. The union says this has not been honoured. Today, Forjax management gave the workers a peace offering. Union representative Mary McGill passed on the good news. 2 days of work on 2 Navy vessels in the dock have been lost, but the men and women voted today to get back on the job. Forjax management would not comment publicly about the dispute. Workers walked back through the gates bitter about the strike and worried about a cloudy future. Peter Ryan, NBN News.